Welcome to CX Insider Mobile Edition. I'm your host, Bill Lawler, and today we're talking about the mobile customer experience and HTML5. Joining us is Jeffrey Hammond, Principal Analyst for Application Development and Delivery at Forrester. The user experience on mobile devices is far more important than on the desktop. If you look at HTML assets that you already have, HTML5 is going to let you bring those assets with more capabilities around multimedia, audio, video, and essentially create a rich internet application experience without having to use Flash. Fundamentally, HTML5 makes a lot more sense for B2C companies to use. Unless you're developing a game that requires deep device API access, you just don't need native code. HTML5 leverages all of your existing assets, it gives you a common look and feel, and your existing developers already know how to use it. You don't need specialized native app developers that code specifically for an iPhone or Android environment. Jeffrey, can you give us some examples of companies that are using HTML5 for their websites or applications today?
Yeah, I'll give you a couple that I think are great examples. First of all, I would say take a look at how the Financial Times makes content available on either the iPad or on the iPhone. They are using 100% pure web approach, HTML5, JavaScript, CSS. When you navigate to the Financial Times website with your iPad or iPhone, it'll detect that you're coming in from one of those devices, and it'll ask if you want to download the application, and it'll actually put a little link on your tablet or your iPhone so that it looks like it's an app like every other app, but yet it is doing everything with HTML5 and JavaScript. One of the interesting things about that Financial Times app is that the user can also configure it to use something called local storage or web storage, which is one of the APIs that's part of the HTML5 standard, and that allows you to cache stories and video and audio offline, so even if your device isn't connected to the web, you can still read those stories when you're on the train or in a tunnel or on an airplane. Another great example is another media company, the Boston Globe, my local newspaper. The reason that I think Boston Globe is a great example is they've implemented a particular design philosophy called responsive design. What responsive design says is, well, the app or the site should look at the size of the screen that it's going to be presented on, and then it should adjust the way that it looks to optimize itself for that screen. So responsive design has what are called viewports. So you'll have like a 4-inch viewport, a 10-inch viewport, and a 15-inch viewport. And then the site will automatically restyle itself based on how much real estate it has. And you can see this with the Boston Globe. If you go to it on a really big screen and then you make your browser bigger or smaller, you'll actually see the site morph and change in real time to fit the space that's available to it. So if you size your browser down to like a little 4-inch viewport like it would be on an iPhone or an Android phone, you'll see a single column display. If you make it 10 inches like you would on an iPad or an Android tablet, you'll see it'll do a 2-column nav. So this idea of responsive design is something that is really changing the way that we think about applications, because we think about them as multi-device display apps. The last example that I would invite people to look at is an example of what I would call a hybrid mobile application. And this is an application that takes a container of native code and a core rendering engine like WebKit, which is underneath Safari and underneath Chrome, and then takes web content and HTML5 content and makes it into an application that can be deployed in an app store or in the Google Play Marketplace. So for a great example of that, look at an application called Untappd, Untappd. The best way for me to describe it is it's Foursquare for people who like to drink beer. So when you go to a bar and you're having a microbrew, your favorite microbrew, you check into the beer. You can take a picture of it. So this is something that normally you can't do with web-based applications. You can't get access to the camera that's on a device. Yet because of this hybrid style that mixes native code and web-based code, you can get access to the camera. It uses an open source library called PhoneGap, which is very, very popular among mobile developers, but it still uses web-based content. And so if you use Untappd and you check into a bunch of different beers, you can see just how good an application experience you can create with HTML5 and JavaScript. And the answer is it's getting increasingly capable. So check out those 3 examples: Financial Times, Boston Globe, and Untappd. And I think you'll get a real sense for what can be done with HTML5 today.
Great. Jeffrey, how can the business side of an organization and the development side of an organization work together to get a great mobile experience?
So first of all, you have to think about who the people are that you're trying to support with the experience and what sort of workload the experience is, what sort of objectives you have. And I would differentiate between three main types of workloads: device-centric, connected tasks, and content-focused. Now, device-centric would be a set of tasks that are really rotating around the device itself. So an example would be a game like Plants vs. Zombies or Angry Birds. It's very possible that I might want to play that game for 5 hours while I'm on an airplane flight from Boston to LAX. That's a device-centric workload, and it's going to be better delivered with a native experience or a middleware-based experience. But then there are lots of connected tasks. Think about when I'm doing electronic payments from my bank, or I want to check my bank balance, or I want to log in to the corporate network, and I want to get access to some documentation. Those tasks don't make sense unless I have internet connectivity. And because of that, the hybrid style or a web-based style can work very, very well because of that connected workload. The final one is the content-focused workload. You're not doing a lot of tasks or behavior. You're mainly consuming text or audio or video. And we see that a lot of those sorts of workloads are actually best done with HTML5 and its attendant standards. And that's why you see sites like the Boston Globe and you see folks like the Financial Times using HTML5 and using responsive design, because those content loads can be very easily delivered with the technology today.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jeffrey. As more developers use HTML5 for their mobile efforts, it's imperative that they incorporate capabilities to capture and understand the user experience. Fundamentally, the mobile experience is far more nuanced than the desktop experience. You need to be able to see the mobile experience exactly as your user is seeing it. And TLeaf and CX Mobile give you that visibility, give you the ability to see every experience and optimize for the best possible experience. Thanks for joining us today. For more information or to request a meeting, please visit tleaf.com.